Hello, fans, and welcome. It's official, the Phoenix Coyotes have relocated to Utah, and while the season is over, the fun is about to begin. I'm Randon, and alongside my co-hosts Dustin and Ryan, we will bring you inside the locker room, giving you all the news, highlights, and an in-depth analysis on everything the NHL in Utah has to offer. Welcome to Episode 1 of the Two Line Pass. That's right, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for the inaugural episode of the Two Line Pass podcast. My name is Randon, and I have here with me my co-hosts, Dustin and Ryan. How are you guys feeling tonight?
Fantastic. The Stars are up 2-0. I'm a Stars fan still.
You're a Stars fan. Get out of here. Ryan, let's hear from the non-Stars fan.
I'm doing good. Carolina and New York are going to OT. I haven't checked the score because, the podcast is going, but go Carolina. They are my team to take it all for this year.
You know what? You guys need to get out of here with your other teams because this podcast is all about talking about the NHL in Utah. As you guys already know, if you're listening to this podcast, you've been paying attention, you've been watching, but maybe you haven't. We're going to tell you the Arizona Coyotes are now located in Utah. Has not been an announcement on the official team name, but the hockey team is in the Utah for this upcoming season. They will play. Puck will drop for the preseason in September, and the games will start in October. Guys, I got to tell you, I am excited. This is probably the most excited I've been for hockey in a long time. I think to experience the NHL firsthand is something great, and I'm excited for one. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I'm about as excited as you can get.
I am stoked. I've been kind of like on the borderline. My whole hockey viewing career has been sort of like just like as a passerby, just like I pay attention when it gets down to like the playoffs and Stanley Cup and I follow my team. But this is the first real excuse I've had to like grab on and fully just grab onto a team and grip it by the throat and say, you're mine now. And I'm going to pay attention to absolutely everything that happens with you. I'm going to be like the obsessive girlfriend who's just, what are they thinking about me? What's going on? What are they doing? What's going on?
That's the way to be. That's the only way to be, Dustin. And Ryan, how are you feeling about this new news, this new NHL team in Utah?
I think it's great for people in Utah. We really haven't had a lot of exciting sports. Like, we lose more teams than we get. Like, the indoor football league, that was gone pretty quick. That was pretty cool. But having the Grizzlies has been fun. But I don't know if you guys remember, but the San Jose Sharks and the LA Kings played an exhibition game here in, 2015. And it was all of their, kids who were trying to make the team. But it was still such a much more high elevated version of hockey. And ever since that, I've wanted hockey, the NHL to come to Utah. And sure, we're getting the Arizona Coyotes, who, good teams don't necessarily move out of their city. But hey, we're now going to give them the home they deserve and the fans they deserve. And we're going to treat those boys right.
You know what? I like that. And we're going to go over in a couple episodes the timeline of the Arizona Coyotes, who are not a homegrown Arizona team. In '96, they came from Winnipeg. And so there's been some movement. And obviously the NHL is no stranger to expansion teams, to relocations, just like any other sport. The NBA, obviously, the Jazz have been a relocation. They've been an extremely successful franchise here in Utah, and I'm a big proponent that if a market can support a basketball team, the market can support a hockey team. And we'll see. We'll find out exactly how that's going to go, but I am very excited. Now, I do want to we've kind of introduced the podcasts themselves, but we haven't introduced ourselves yet. So my name is Randon. I'm one of the hosts here at the Two Line Pass podcast. I have been a fan of hockey since I could pretty much walk. Been to many of the minor league games that have graced the great state of Utah, starting with the Salt Lake Golden Eagles, moving into the Utah Grizzlies. And I've had the great fortune of watching a couple of NHL games in Colorado and Las Vegas. Obviously, I'm very excited to be here with you guys talking about the sport of hockey and specifically about a local team at the NHL level. Super excited to be here. My family's been into hockey forever. It's a generational thing. The only thing we haven't done is play the game in terms of professional competitive playing, but street hockey, inline hockey leagues, we've played it all in a unofficial capacity. And I got to tell you, I'm just so excited to be here. And I kind of want to hear from you, Dustin. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get into hockey?
Well, so like Randon said, my name is Dustin. I am, I'm just going to get this out of the way, right out of the gate. An award-winning podcaster. I just want to point that out. Like, I have awards to my name for my podcasting abilities. So if you want just professionalism and just know somebody who knows what they're doing, this is the podcast. But like I said a little earlier, my whole hockey like fandom has been sort of like just like I think what a lot of people who are going to become fans of the Utah to be named NHL team are going to be. Just kind of like a casual fan who's just you haven't had like a direct tie to something, so you find a team that you root for. Mine was the Dallas Stars and like casually also kind of the San Jose Sharks growing up. But just like paying attention, but I didn't, especially locally, you don't have a lot of coverage for that team, so you can't follow it too closely, and you only get to catch them when they're on like ESPN or TNN or TNT, all the different channels that have broadcast hockey over the years. So it's made it growing up a little hard to follow hockey. But I've been to a handful of like Utah Grizzlies games. I've actually scored a goal on the ice at the Maverick Center. So, I feel like I have
that game, everybody. I was
at
that game.
And all season long, the prize for that was $10,000, and I won an iPod.
They claimed later. Yep, they claimed later it was a regular season only event. So Utah Grizzlies, if anybody was around when that happened, and you did our boy wrong, and maybe you give us a call, maybe you send us a tweet at the Two Line Pass, and maybe you say sorry. Maybe you make them amends. Just saying you did our boy dirty.
Petridge Farm remembers. Maybe Petridge Farm doesn't want to forget.
Thank you, Dustin. We are so glad to have you with us, to have your sports knowledge from the local scene and the national scene, and as well as your podcast expertise. I could not be more excited to have you along. So thank you very much for agreeing to be here with us. And now let's throw it over to the third amigo. Little known fact: he is my brother. Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, everybody. I'm Ryan. You guys can also refer to me as Toothless Tommy. Long story. We'll get into it later sometime. So I got into hockey, as Randon said earlier, as a family thing. I never was around for the Golden Eagles. I was much too young or not even alive, I don't think, when the Golden Eagles were around. But I do remember going to Grizzly games at a young age with my mom. But the main two events I can pinpoint that made me be like hockey is, for me, was the Ray Borick Stanley Cup lift, because that was the first time I ever watched my mom cry about hockey. And like that just kind of cemented. I was like, wow, it's more than a game. And then the 2007 Ottawa Senators Buffalo Sabres line brawl, where Ray Emery beat up Marty Biron, and then Andrew Peters beat up Ray Emery for beating up his goalie. I was sold from then on out. And I was a Sabres fan for the longest time. Still a Sabres fan. I'm not gonna completely abandon the boys, but they're getting pushed to the back burner. I'm wearing a Sabres hat, but that's just because we don't have any Utah official gear yet. Got to get a name figured out.
No gear, no name yet. Hopefully they make an announcement soon. There seems to be no urgency on that, but we'll cross that bridge as soon as the news is dropped. We'll let you guys know, and we'll discuss it and see. We're going to discuss a little later what has been floated, what has been trademarked, and what we kind of think is going to happen. But welcome, Ryan. I'm so excited you wanted to do this with us. Very happy. And kind of going along with your hockey moment, I want to let everybody know, if you've been a fan of this game, you know how invested you can get in the sport. You know that there are certain moments, just like in any other sport, that kind of solidify in your memory and become to steal a quote from a movie, a core memory. And it's just they have the potential to make you a lifelong fan of this game. And if you're somebody who's maybe you're just getting into the sport of hockey, maybe you've known that there's been a minor league team in Utah before, but you've never actually taken that jump to fandom. But now it's the high stakes game. You know, it's the NHL coming, and you're ready to take that plunge. Welcome, and you've found a home. What we're going to do is we're going to bridge that gap. As a podcast, we're going to attempt to give you newer fans. Maybe you don't have a deep understanding of the game. We're going to help you along the way. We're going to hold your hand. We're going to guide you through this journey, and we're going to speak to you as well as the people who could name the third and fourth lines, and they could name their wives and their kids and everything, and they have their schedules on lockdown, and we're going to help you guys as well. And we want to make this podcast for everybody and give everybody a chance to be a fan, to grow the game and grow the fandom. And I'm super excited. Ryan spoke to his hockey moment. Dustin, do you have any moments you can look back on, any singular events? He spoke about the Ray Bourque cup lifting. For those of you not familiar, Ray Bourque was a veteran of the game. I think it was 22 full seasons he played before he finally won his championship. And he was the first to lift the trophy, which is called the Stanley Cup. It was a incredible moment. The emotion was there. Everybody in the stands could feel it. You just couldn't root against the guy. And it was one of those just iconic sports moments, not just hockey moment, but iconic sports moments. Dustin, do you have anything like that? Maybe you've been to a game that had an impact, or you've seen something on TV. Tell us kind of about your hockey moment that did it for you.
I don't have one specific moment like that everybody knows, that everybody relates to, that when you're looking back, like in baseball, like Buckner and balls going through legs and home runs while guys are limping down the first baseline, stuff that just people automatically call back to. But I think the first time I sat down and actually watched like hockey and was like invested in it and it hooked me was, I believe it was the early 2000s. A goalie by the name of Jean-Sébastien Giguère for the Anaheim Ducks was just phenomenal in the series that he was playing. And I watched this guy, I'm like, this guy is amazing. And I related to it because growing up, I played catcher, I played baseball, and I was a catcher. So I was the guy with all the gear on that's dropping down and stopping balls and putting my body on the line. And I related to it. I'm like, this guy's phenomenal. This sport is awesome. And that's sort of where it all started. And then my dad actually, he worked at the newspaper company here locally with like the Salt Lake Tribune, and he'd get tickets. So right about that same time, I started going to Grizzlies games. I'm like, this sport is awesome. So it's not really one outstanding moment that people look back on, but it was just the performance of him in that series just drew me into the game.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I was just thinking about how good the goaltending has been in this particular playoff series, and throughout for many, many years, you'll always find those outstanding goalies. And it seems like at playoff time, that's one of those positions that just is the most important. You can ride a hot goalie to a championship. And Jean-Sébastien Giguère was one of those guys. He actually, for if you're newer to the sport, he won what's called the Conn Smythe Trophy. That's the MVP of the playoffs. He won it, and he was one of the few who have won it when he's on the losing team. Historically speaking, if your team wins the cup, your team is going to have the MVP on their team. And Jaguar was one of those. He just was that good throughout the playoffs that he won the MVP, even being on the losing team. So that was kind of special to see that, because it does not happen that often.
He
so
only
that's
lost
pretty cool.
2 games in that run to the cup. He was 12-6, or he was 8-0 going into the Eastern Conference Final, and then 12-0 or 12-2 going into the Stanley Cup Final with a 1.01 goals against average, .930 save percentage, and those people in New Jersey had the audacity to boo him when they gave him the Conn Smythe, and I still have not forgiven that entire state. So if you're a New Jersey Devils fan, you can apologize in the comments, and I will consider it.
You can also apologize for the dirty, rotten scoundrel Scott Stevens that you employed as your captain for all those years.
He nearly killed a man on national television.
I watched it.
It's so bad. Like, the game has changed, though. Think about if that happened in today's game, you're done. That's a hit where if you try that, it's done. Like, the NHL's not letting you come back. Scott Stevens did that, every other game? He was out there decapitating dudes.
Just like any other game, hockey is one of those games that has evolved many times, and it is still changing, and the eras of any other sport exist in hockey as well. That you hear it was a different time, it was a different game back then, and so you'll hear through the various episodes. We'll reference some historical events, some players, maybe do some comparisons. One of the big, obviously, everybody's probably heard of him, even if you're not a hockey fan, Wayne Gretzky. One of the fun things that commentators like to do is they ask themselves, what would Wayne Gretzky do in this era, or what would our greats do in Wayne Gretzky's era? Because the game was just that different. So those will be some fun things we'll talk about as well.
Side note to that, Crosby would have 37,000 points if he played in the 80s or the 70s. There was zero goaltending. And Wayne Gretzky can't play. He can play defense, I guess, but there was a much different game when he played. But I think the game in today, with the speed and skill, transfers way easier to back then than those guys would try to transfer into today's game. And I think Wayne Gretzky would agree with me on that. That it would be much easier for these guys to go then than him to try to play in the new game. For God's sakes, he had a wooden stick. It was a tree branch, for God's sakes.
I think some of the core skills that he developed would still play well, but you're right. And that's one of the great things I think the three of us can appreciate this, and the people who have been following hockey for a while can appreciate this. And you newer fans will find out that this is a very good time to get into hockey. The talent level across the board is so high that the difference between the top team in the league and the bottom team there's not that sizable of a gap. Or let me say, at least for the most part, the middle and the top, there is a lot of parity in the sport of hockey. And the bottom teams, they're pretty bad this year, but for the most part, there's so much talent across the board that's spread out, and it's not just a wonder team. And Dustin, I think you have a kind of an insight here between the three of us. You're probably the most locked in on the Utah Jazz, and you probably know more about the Utah Jazz than Ryan and I combined. Do you see any parallels between being a fan of the Utah Jazz and what it might be like to become a fan of this new NHL franchise? Is that something you've thought about at all?
I mean, honestly, the two franchises where they are right now they're on really similar footing. I'm not going to go in too much into what the Jazz have done because this is an NHL podcast instead of an NBA podcast, but they've traded away a lot of players and they've gathered a lot of draft picks. They have a lot of capital to make moves, move up in drafts if they see somebody they want, or to collect players. And that's sort of what Utah has right now. They have the sixth pick in the upcoming draft and something like 12 draft picks. Like, they have a bunch of draft picks stockpiled up that they can combine to move up, to pick up players, to move around, and both of them have a lot of really young, promising talent. So, I mean, they're going to be playing in the same building, and both of them are in very similar spots in terms of their flexibility and availability to go out and make moves and bring people in. And this is the first time, maybe since they were back in Winnipeg, where Arizona, the Coyotes franchise, has had an owner who's going to support them actually going out and making moves and signing players, and isn't going to be not paying hotel bills and everything else that was going on with that franchise, which we can cover in the episode of why that team wound up here in Utah. But yeah, the two teams are in very similar spots right now.
I like that. And I think that a lot of the fans, I think there's a lot of passion for the Utah Jazz. There's a lot made about small market teams and things. And I get that for the most part. But I think the concept of a small market team is slowly vanishing. And what you will find in hockey, as I kind of spoke to a little earlier, is that there's not necessarily a reliance on that one big name free agent, where you might find that in the NBA, and people might think, oh, Utah just can't grab that one guy, that big free agent, he'll never come to Utah. That's not the case in hockey necessarily. Some of the biggest names do not play in the biggest American markets. Probably the hottest player in the league right now, Connor McDavid, plays for the Edmonton Oilers. And the talent is spread. One of the greatest American players plays for his Austin Matthews, plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the Arizona Coyotes have some incredible talent that any of the big teams, you would look at New York, Boston, LA, all those big market teams, they would love to have a number of guys that Utah has, and we have a shot to grab any of the players on their team. So I think in hockey, that concept of like, oh, I want to go play under the lights in New York, or I want to play under the lights in Las Vegas or Los Angeles, it doesn't necessarily happen as often as it does in the NBA. So I think Dustin's bored. You can't see it. Maybe in the bonus episodes you'll be able to see it. But I'm
going to take a screenshot. I'm moving it so I can take a screenshot.
It sums up what we're all thinking. And guys, it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be in the NHL. We've talked a lot of hypotheticals, so let's jump into one more hypothetical. Still no news on what the name of the team is going to be. We've got a lot of speculation. We've got some trademarks so far, and I want to go over so far what we know what the trademarks are. So we've got the Utah Yetis, the Utah Outlaws, the Utah Venom, the Utah Mammoth, the Utah Ice, the Utah Fury, the Utah Blizzard, and the Utah Hockey Club, and I think Utah HC for Hockey Club for short, are all confirmed trademarks. And we've seen in the past, the Seattle Kraken is the most recent expansion team. They had about 15 trademark names before they settled on the Seattle Kraken. So we could add to this list in the coming weeks, in the coming months. The only thing that is really pressing to get a name out there is merchandise sales. So let's hear from you guys. Let's hear from Ryan. Why don't you start, and then we'll go to Dustin. What do you think the name out of those trademarks, what would you like to see? Do you have any ideas of your own, and what do you think it's going to be in the end?
So I have been thinking about it. Of the trademark names, I know this is going to get a lot of crap, but I actually don't mind the Utah HC. I know it's soccer vibes, but if we can't think of something, you know what I mean? If we need a name in like an intermediate name, go with Utah HC. Out of the rest of them, I mean, I like the Yetis. I think the Yetis is a good choice, but it's kind of with the Avalanche. They use the Bigfoot logo, so that could be an issue. I think personally, and I know this is never going to happen, but I feel we should be the Utah Miners in honor of the Kennecott Copper Mine and polygamy. But
it
that's
can
just
happen.
me. I know they're not going to vote for. I think if we all wrote it in, it could work. Because then our logo can be a miner and his hockey stick can be a pickaxe. It'll work. It'll be perfect.
Kind of like miners,
but
I haven't heard
actually
that
don't
one
mind
before.
the Venom. I don't mind Venom either, but I also wouldn't mind seeing if they tried to do something with. I know we have the Salt Lake City Bees, who are a baseball team, but we are the Beehive State, so I feel like they could work something cool with that. Not I don't know, the Wasps maybe. I don't know. We can't be the Yellow Jackets because there's the Columbus Blue Jackets, so that ruins that.
And there's Red Sox and White Sox in baseball. You can use different colors.
That's fair. True, it's a built-in team rivalry. I don't think the Red Sox and the White Sox are a rivalry, but we could make it a rivalry.
No,
Columbus
we're going to make our rivalry the Avalanche. We're coming for the Avalanche. We're coming for their top of, or their spot atop the division. The Rocky Mountain rivalry is going to be the best.
I think that's going to be something that the NHL would like to see. Arizona did not have too many natural rivalries evolve. They didn't evolve into a rivalry with they never did with Vegas. They were in different divisions, though. Las Vegas plays in the Pacific and Arizona in the Central. So they did not play, even though they proximity-wise it made sense. They were not in the same division, so they never found one a home, I don't think, with Dallas. And I think if we really put all our cards on the table, the perception of Arizona was that they weren't really taken seriously, especially those last 2 years. And it was not worth another fan base's time to consider them rivals. Maybe Arizona looked at another team as a rival, but it was never reciprocal. But we're going to start some rivalries. Dustin, what do you think? Is it going to be the Venom and the Avalanche Rocky Mountain rivalry? What are your thoughts?
I got to be honest, out of the trademarks, I don't really like any of them very much. I think I like the Mammoth better than the rest. I've seen some mock-ups of some jerseys with the Mammoth, and it looks pretty cool. But
what about the Colorado Mammoth?
It just doesn't. None of them feel right. I can't even really describe it. It doesn't feel. They don't feel like good hockey team names. Like I wanted. It's not been a very popular one that I've seen tossed around very much. But I wanted to bring the name Trappers over and be the Utah Trappers. But honestly, that now that I've actually heard it, my favorite right now is the Utah Miners, because that ties into something local, and it like a lot of team names used to tie into something local, like the Bees and like the Jazz aren't tied to anything local, but they moved from New Orleans, which was tied into Jazz, and just a lot of that. That's where team names come from, and Miners makes a lot of sense. I low-key love that one.
I got to tell you, I had not thought about it, and I love Ryan's double entendre on it. But if you think about it, just the MINER, it does work, and I've seen jerseys. I've had a jersey from a popular theme park that was a Miners jersey, and I loved that jersey. I loved the aesthetic of it. I loved the colors of it, and I think something good can come of it. And so as soon as Ryan mentioned it, I was also on board. We'll see what happens. I know there is a lot of desire locally for a Wild West type theme. So I think Outlaws, Renegades, that type of thing is gaining a lot of traction locally. I kind of
we should just be the running Utes then. And just team up with, you know what I mean? We might as well do a Ute
Cowboys
theme.
Though they want to go Cowboys. They want the desert. You know,
we're the Indians and Cowboys versus Indians. We're come on now.
If I was to put money on it, I would put money on a Wild West theme name winning the. If he does do a vote like Ryan Smith wants to, I would think the Wild West. But
that's
but
terrible.
I gotta tell you,
it's such a bad idea.
I like hockey.
If they go vote, we're going to be the Utah Hockey McHockey Face team.
Hockey McHockey Face has got to. He's got to honor it.
We could be like, I know some Biz wants us to be the Utah Soakers, so shout out to my boy Biz Nasty, but God, I hope not.
That's Paul Bissonnette for the uninitiated. He's a commentator. You may have seen him on the NHL's playoff broadcast.
Arizona Coyotes legend. So
he did play for the team.
Biz.
He did play for the team, so you guys will know him.
Also worked as part of their media department. He was one of their commentators for like 3 years too.
We're going to deep dive all the players' historical and potentially future, and of course the present team. I want to kind of go over where we see this podcast going. I talked about how I want to bridge the gap between the hardcore fan and the newer fan. We're going to do episodes for both. We're going to have some intro episodes that talk about the game of hockey as it is. If you've never been to a hockey game, or maybe you have been to a hockey game, you just had no idea what you went to. And really, to be honest, you just knew that there was fighting. That seems to be a very popular thing for new fans. And I got to tell you, it's one of the exciting things about hockey. There is a push to remove fighting from the game. I don't ever want to see that happen. I'm a big proponent of it. I think it's exciting, and it's just part of the game. It's so deeply ingrained in the game that I want it to stay. But we're gonna introduce you to concepts about hockey, and we're gonna guide you through that. And then for the hardcore fans, we're going to go into the statistics of the team. We're going to go into the projections of the team. We're going to go into where we see, we're going to talk about mock trades. And of course, once the season starts, once the excitement is actually here, that's where it's going to get fun. We're going to do game day episodes. We're going to do pregame, postgame on the occasion. But we're going to bring you the action each and every game. And we're going to give you the opportunity. What I would like to see, guys, I don't know how you feel about this, but I would like to see a casual fan listen to the podcast, take what they hear from the podcast, go tell their buddy at the office, pass our ideas off on their own. He seems like the king, or she seems like the queen of the office, because they're locked in. They know what's going on, and then they're going to become the resident experts. That's what I would like to see people take away from the podcast, and I would just like to generate more and more excitement. I really want to see this thing work past season one. I know there's going to be season one excitement. I want to see that long-term excitement too.
And I think Utah is a great place for that. We're one of the faster growing cities, and we have a lot of younger people. And I don't know if you guys have been to a Real Salt Lake game, but there is pretty new and those fans go insane. And I think if we could take that same Utah vibe from that and bring it to the NHL, it's going to be a home run for everybody. And I feel that soccer and hockey are both equally paced kind of games. You know what I mean? Like, they both have their moments of high excitement, but then there's also their slower down moments.
I think the parallels are there, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited for you guys. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for the future. That just about does it for us here today, though. Dustin, do you have any closing thoughts?
Go Utah Hockey Team. That's my closing thought. Go us.
Go Utah Hockey Team.
And until the end of these Stanley Cup playoffs, go Stars.
Ryan, your closing thought.
Tell your friends, tell everybody. We're Utah Hockey Club. It's coming like wildfire. Dexter the cat also wanted to say, go Utah Hockey. You can see his head.
If you've got friends, family, pets, all of you want to be locked in.
Everybody. Two Line Pass Podcast. Tell them Toothless Tommy sent you.
All off season, you're going to want to be there for the regular season. We're going to be there for you. Thank you so much for joining us. Go Utah Hockey Team. I'm Randon. That was Dustin and Ryan, and we'll see you next time.